Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I'll be discussing the 1972 British comedy and sequel to the 1971 movie On the Buses, Mutiny on the Buses, as directed again by Harry Booth, and again based on the hit British TV series of the same name, which originally aired from 1969 to 1973, spanning a total of 74 episodes and over 7 seasons. And, in fact, also written once again by the show's original writers, Ronald Chesney and Ronald Wolfe. So, like my review for the first movie in this series, I am actually going to try my hand at editing in some clips, given the relative obscurity of the film, if you like. So bear with me, see how it goes. But it's not going to be a permanent feature, because I do obviously stand the risk of being demonetized with some of the clips that I use. But I hope that the filmmakers can see this for what it is. You know, these films are probably not going to be seen by a lot of different people, so I thought, why not put some clips in, then everybody can at least have a kind of a little understanding of what I'm talking about. I don't know. I don't know how big the On the Buses is across around the world and things like that, so whether or not people will know about it, let me know. I don't know. But anywho, at the risk of repeating myself further from the first review, just in case you haven't seen that review for the first movie in the series, if you haven't, go check it out. This is a film spin-off from the TV series and not a continuation. It exists in its own canon and forms together with the first movie and indeed its own sequel. So 1971's On the Buses being the first movie and 1973's Holiday on the Buses being the sequel. Kind of a sort of a series on its own, which, whilst having kind of a couple of minor plot holes, it is a fairly decently rounded kind of trilogy of films. But indeed, whilst the film is not a direct continuation of the series all told, it does actually feature all of the regular cast and characters from the series, and it is very much in line with the comedy and feel of many of the series' classic episodes. So much so that they do feel like a continuation of the series, unless you kind of really have kind of studied the episodes closely. I doubt that the casual viewer would actually really even tell. So, then, Mutiny on the Buses sees the return of our two randy layabout friends working for a bus company, Stan, as played by Varney, who's a bus driver, and Jack, as played by Bob Grant, who's his conductor. As, of course, when such things existed.
You upstairs. You know the regulations. You're not even supposed to eat your lunch upstairs. I'm surprised at you, miss. Holding up the bus service so you can with him of all people.
It's all right, Inspector. We just got engaged.
Engaged? To him? Oh, God.
What's wrong with that?
In all the years I've known him, he's never even managed to get his bus in on time.
Come on, get these buses out.
So, this movie kind of continues their exploits as they try and shirk as much work as humanly possible, finding and using any scheme that they can to exploit the bus service and basically to their own end.
Two mutinous dogs. You're defying me and breaking every regulation in the book. I'm making out a special report about you two. Ain't about. Don't let your driver go till I check your way, Bill.
We see Stan, this time around, inadvertently agree to getting married to one of his clippies. So a clippy is a term used for a female bus conductor back in the day. Namely, Susie, as played by Janet Mahoney, as he kind of tries to take their relationship further, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like catching a fish. She keeps dangling the bait, but she won't let him have a nibble.
Stan?
Yeah?
Have you found anywhere for us to live yet?
Yeah, it's all fixed. Mum said we could live with her.
Oh, no, I'm not having that. I'm not getting married until we've got a place of our own.
Well, it's marvellous. I thought you'd be pleased. I mean, flats are not easy to come by, or houses. I mean, you just can't pick them up like that, you know.
You don't want to wait, do you?
No, of course I don't, darling, but...
From here, we see Stan struggle to find the money to put down a deposit on a flat for him and Susie once they're married. Much to Susie's dismay and his family's delight, who don't see why they can't live with them, and of course help with the bills. So, you know, everything kind of seems to be working against him, And to top it all off, there is a new general manager at the bus depot, Mr. Jenkins, as played by Kevin Brennan, who kind of threatens Stan and Jack's way of life and indeed their jobs with his schemes to keep them in check.
Okay. Hey, you. You know what time this bus is due out?
No, we haven't made up our minds yet.
What?
Passengers have to wait outside for the bus.
How long will the next bus be?
About 38 feet.
Having any trouble, Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins? Oh.
Who are these two layabouts?
Butler and Harper, sir. The worst two in the old depot. I'm always having trouble with these two.
All of this, and Arthur, as played by Michael Robbins, Stan's brother, Stan's brother-in-law, has been made redundant, which further scuppers Stan's plans for marital bliss. So, when needs must, Stan and Jack proceed to try and train Arthur to become a bus driver, with some hilarious consequences, of course, along the way, as the hapless duo try and steal every minute they can on their route to only be thwarted at every turn. Until they throw a few spanners in the works of their own, on the buses style.
Well, it's the inspector, sir. He asked us to come to work with no other clothes on.
He what?
Oh, I think he's lusting after me body.
Him?
No. Tell him the truth, come on.
You told us to come to work with nothing else but our uniforms, didn't he?
Yes.
You're kinky or something?
No.
Well, he does go a bit funny sometimes.
So, the first thing that becomes apparent as soon as this film kind of starts is that it has a more slapstick and cartoonish quality about it than its predecessor. Not particularly in the way that it is presented as such, but more from the catchy and kind of like zany-esque theme by Ron Grainer. That is played throughout and indeed over the intro sequence, where we get to meet all of the principal characters in hilarious and compromising positions. So the actual cinematography and the characters are all kind of familiar, and indeed very much of the same ilk as the original movie. But that theme, it just kind of hits you from the very off. It gets in your head. You know this is going to be one kind of madcap adventure as soon as you hear it, you know for sure. Interestingly as well, for the Doctor Who fans out there, you may already know the name. But not that it's related to this film in any way particularly, but Ron Grainer, if I'm saying the name right, Grainer, was indeed the one who brought us the original Doctor Who theme. And, if you know of the series, that for Steptoe and Son too, just to name a few. So definitely, you know, quite the thing for catchy themes.
Not my dear good man, I do drive a motorcycle. Maybe, but this is not a motorcycle, is it? And I'm telling you, the clutch on this thing's a real brute. Right, let's stick it in gear. Now push the pedal right down. Right, that's it. Now then, let it up very slowly, releasing the handbrake at the same... Stop! What are you doing? Where are you?
I would actually say that the style of the film and the resultant comedy sketches are more akin to those that you see in the series itself. Perhaps a bit more slapdash, perhaps, and incoherent at times, but overall, I do actually find this movie more rounded and more appealing overall than the first. And to me, this has always kind of been my personal favourite of the three for that very reason. The majority of the team behind the first movie are back, all but the film's composer, I believe, which offer a real familiar flavour. And although, yes, as a sequel, it technically offers a separate story, the fact that we once again get to interact with Stan's family, indeed now seeing Olive's baby growing up as a toddler, of course, after having been pregnant in the first movie, allows the movie to kind of still feel connected and a continuation of the original movie. Again, we have some excellent character acting from Inspector Blakey, as played once again excellently by Stephen Lewis. You know, once more stealing the show. And indeed, you know, he plays more of a pivotal part in this movie throughout. But does end up, therefore, suffering, to be fair, more than ever. But those exploits are very much the backbone of the film. The series may have been about Stan and Jack, but for the most part, the filmmakers knew exactly who the public wanted to see more of.
From next week, every bus is going to have that fitted. I'll be able to keep in touch all day.
Ah, good, that's all we need.
There'll be no arriving early at the turnaround points and having a kip. No leaving late and dawdling. I won't give you a minute's peace all day. Oh, good.
And in saying that, the film is also more focused on the antics of the family this time around, with Doris Hare as mum once again on top form, and indeed certainly being one of the film's main attractions, with a kind of bolshy and no-nonsense attitude. Arthur and Olive, I didn't say her name before, but as once again played by Anna Karen, take their bickering to the next level, with Arthur being even more vile and vicious towards Olive. But then Olive basically standing her ground and certainly giving as much as she gets. Indeed, Arthur does actually start to play away. Well, he tries anyway. He's got ideas, I think, above his station, but he doesn't get too far. Let's just say that. But Olive goes on the full-on assault. But once again, with disastrous but yet hilarious consequences, you know?
Arthur, you're snoring. Turn over and wake the baby. Arthur, turn over. Get off your back.
Have you gone raving mad?
You were snoring.
This entry does seem a lot more slapstick than the first. Indeed, with a number of scenes being kind of very Laurel and Hardy, if you like, in kind of the nature in which they're kind of played out. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I like Laurel and Hardy. But there is a trade-off. Like many UK TV adaptations kind of that were made around this time, and indeed, as per the first film again, there isn't really much of an overarching plot, other than Stan's mission to obtain enough money to get a place of their own, you know? With many events kind of seemingly happening at random, and with the film merely kind of moving from one antic to the next. And this movie has kind of far less of a backbone story in that respect than its predecessor did.
See the van? The manager's given me that so I can check up on you two any time I like. Well, you're least expecting it, mate. Better than radio control, isn't it, eh? Right, you go back to the depot, mate. I'm getting on the bus with these two. Come on.
What about the dartboard and the fish and chips? I'll leave it for now. As soon as he gets off, you stop and I'll get rid of it. Right.
Come on.
Blakey, how far are you going?
The actual tone of the movie is also more playful, I think, and the lecherous behaviour of the two protagonists has been very much kind of watered down. Indeed, Susie won't actually put out this time around until she's married. In fact, it has been toned down to the extent that Jack does seem somewhat to have kind of had his wings clipped in this one. He doesn't feature quite as much this time around, nor has kind of as many storylines as he did in the first movie. Kind of feeling a little bit more sidekick than a lead, I would say.
Oh, that's done it.
this entry definitely doesn't kind of suffer to the same extent from the same issues as its predecessor in terms because of all of this, in terms of the portrayal of women. You know, it is still a product of its time, don't get me wrong, but the humour this time around is mostly placed squarely at the inspector's door, more so than anything else. This doesn't mean to say, don't quote me on it, but this doesn't mean to say it doesn't have its moments. You know, it's from the 1970s, so it does. The one main thing I do take umbrage with, to be quite fair, it really is still the portrayal of the Clippies, who are either seen as sex-mad strumpets or gold diggers. Of course, you know, in 1970, we still have a long way to go, you know. But it does have more than its fair share of redeeming moments, such as when Stan and Jack decide to heat their fish and chips using the engine of their bus. Unlike the last movie, I haven't seen a bus driver do that. Forget that there, and then inadvertently set fire to the depot, and in their haste, you know, in their haste to get rid of the evidence. And as I say, that the firefighting skills that they've got, and indeed the equipment, leave very much to the imagination to be desired, you know. We have them even tampering with the new radio bus system to pick up the police frequency, and a safari adventure that gets them a little bit too close to nature.
Well, come on, he's gone now. Come and drive on, Butler. Drive on! Shut up! Don't you tell me to shut up, Butler. Drive on! Hold on a minute.
Overall, you know, this is quite a decent comedy, and indeed one of my personal favourites from the 3 On The Buses movies. Very slapstick indeed, but quite, you know, and quite cartoonish at times, lending itself more to that Laurel and Hardy style that I talked about than its predecessor. It is much more focused on the bus depot itself, and indeed Stan and his family this time around, with each of them getting more billing, I would say, than they had done previously, which unfortunately does somewhat see Jack sidelined, which is a shame, you know, it is a shame. With a very light tone and plenty of zany antics from our 2 hapless layabouts in the main, it is a very easy digest. It really is. Not quite the pinnacle of British comedy, don't get me wrong, but, you know, it's more than a worthy sequel to the original film, providing a few laughs, you know, more than a few laughs to be fair, and most certainly more of Stephen Lewis as Inspector Blake, who is still an absolute treat to watch on screen, even to this day. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content we've absolutely loved having here at SciFirst MovieTalk. We would definitely love to have you back. But most of all, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.